Hello everyone, I'm Wendell Jones and welcome to this edition of the program, The Platform. On this program, we examine national, sometimes international issues. And on our program today, we are pleased to have two important guests with us. The Bahamas ambassador to the United Nations and the Organization of American States, Dr. Elliston Rahming, is leading a delegation in our country this week. Because they're considering some important things. In 2011, the Bahamas passed legislation which makes the capture and killing of sharks illegal, and in 2013 assumed chairmanship of the coalition at the United Nations for a 2-year term. And the aim of that coalition we are going to hear in a short while. Dr. Rahming has brought with him to the Bahamas an outstanding gentleman who is an envoy for the coalition, and he is well known to many Bahamians because you might have seen him on television. Mr. Montel Williams. Mr. Williams has written 8 books, and he is known around the world. And it is our pleasure to have both His Excellency Dr. Elliston Rahming and Montel Williams here on our program this evening. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Good to be here.
Thank you. Nice to have you here. It's good to see you, Ambassador. I haven't seen you since your appointment some time ago.
That's right.
And you have escaped the cold, I believe.
I have escaped the cold, that's right.
Yes. Tell us about your chairmanship of the coalition that you are heading to save our sharks.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you very much, Mr. Jones. The United Nations, as you would know, has a number of formal committees and agencies. Principally, it has 6 major committees, and then it has a number of ad hoc or subsidiary organizations formed by member states themselves. The Save Our Sharks Coalition is one such initiative formed some 6 years ago by Honduras and Palau with a view to sensitizing the world community, actually, to the fact that there's a depletion in the shark stock around the world, alerting the world community as to the impact the killing of sharks has. There are a number of countries, mostly Asian countries, that routinely kill sharks, about 100 million of them a year, to use their fins as a delicacy in soup. Once these fins go in the soup, they don't add a particular taste to it. It's just a luxury to have it. And so they cut the fins, and then they throw the sharks back in the water. And the sharks obviously die, they drown because they need the fins in order to swim. And so what research has shown is that when you catch a shark and you defin it, it yields about $500. If you leave that same shark in the water over its lifetime, it yields about $3 million just by people coming to look at it, coming to research it. And so a shark that's left in the water is far more economically viable than a shark that is caught. And that's the new mood of the world community now, to stop the unwarranted slaughter, really, of sharks. And so the role of the Save Our Sharks Coalition is to sensitize, first of all, small island states, such as the Bahamas, such as the rest of the Caribbean, many Latin American countries, Pacific countries, to look at the creation of blue economies by saving sharks, and to desensitize people as to the benefit of sharks. And so we put together this expedition to bring about a dozen ambassadors to the Bahamas to go to the island school where they can touch sharks to take away some of the fear. It's amazing that around the world there are about 3 shark killings per year. You wouldn't think so, but there are millions of people who die by vehicular accidents, by poisoning with household items. But we don't have the fear of those things as much as we have of sharks. So it's taking away some of the stigma, some of the fear. And so we went down to the island school on Monday, had a wonderful experience, and they're now to go back to their respective countries and sell the idea to their capitals that there are economic benefits and ecological benefits and environmental benefits to this whole question of not just saving sharks, but having a sustainable oceans and seas.
Okay. Montel Williams, welcome to our country.
Thank you for having me, sir.
And you've been here before, I'm sure.
Oh, yes, sir, multiple times. I
Yes.
get to the Bahamas probably sometimes 3 times a year.
Is
So
that
quite
right?
often, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, very good. And you are the special envoy to the coalition.
Yes, sir.
And just before we engage you, let me say that we have been following your programs on television,
Sure.
and they have been very inspirational. Even
Thank
your
you.
books
Oh, thank you so much.
have
Yes, sir.
been inspirational. Now, how are you enjoying your role as envoy?
This has been wonderful because, you know, this is kind of like the little train that could. I mean, the Shark Coalition, which has now been in business for about 2 years, has really done a lot more at the UN than most people know, but no one is trumpeting their victories. And fortunately, and I'm blessed that, you know, Ambassador Rahming and the group came together and asked me if I would want to participate, because my role is truly going to try to be the biggest trumpet and loudest megaphone that this organization has. What we're not realizing is, and the ambassador just articulated it as well as it can be articulated, a living shark is worth so much more, not just to a local economy, but for the world. Remember, the shark is the top of the food chain. When you cut the head off of anything, what happens to the rest? Our oceans are dying, and they're dying because we're overfishing, and we're indiscriminately killing some of nature's, you know, most useful animals for mankind. So the fact that the Shark Coalition has come together, Ambassador Rahming just said, you know, a lot of our South China Sea and Asian nations were using shark fin as a delicacy. Well, now recently, the Chinese government has just announced that they can no longer serve shark fin soup at any official state dinners. This is a dramatic change in the history of the world, to have a country that has lived for its eternity believing that there was some value to this, now having a government of those people say, stop serving it. That's going to be one thing, but we have to come together collectively. The fact that the Bahamas has declared waters that are shark sanctuary, well, you can swim a couple hundred miles this way and you're out of the waters. So the fact that you've brought together this coalition of ambassadors here to take a look at the school, the island school that you have, which is a tremendous resource. I mean, it's really phenomenal. I'm sure a lot of Bahamians know it's here, but I wonder how many of them go and see the treasure that you have that's now getting ready to become a treasure that's going to lead the rest of the world, because there are several ambassadors who left who you should see the smiles on their faces last night, having just experienced what they were able to experience and be able to walk away and be able to share this back in their home nation. So that's part of my job. That's what I'm going to be doing, is trumpeting. We're also filming this. So, you know, at the same time, we're going to get an opportunity to trumpet the victories that the Bahamas has made in forums like the UN and other places around the world.
Did you swim with the shark?
I didn't go with them yesterday, but here's what we did. We have about 11 ambassadors here, and you know what happens. Montel gets in the water, and the cameras go on me rather than on the experience. We're trying to make sure we have a really good documentary so that people don't think I'm putting on some sort of a Montel Williams, you know, travel video. Mm. This is about an issue that I want them to focus on the fact that people like Ambassador Rahming got in the water, was able to touch a shark. You know, though someone else was holding it to touch a shark. They're more beautiful animals than you think, and have only been vilified because Hollywood vilified. Look, right now you got movies of sharks getting caught up in tornadoes and flying out of the sky and falling in the street and eating people. But this is the attitude that we've made and we've portrayed when it comes to sharks, and it's really a vilification that doesn't need to be there. And now we have to recognize that we have to vilify so we can save this great planet for the generations that come.
You know, many people consider sharks to be predators, Dr. Rahming.
They are.
In the Bahamas, and of course they are afraid to even see a shark.
But it's very funny, but I will guarantee you that someone died from a car accident here in the Bahamas before someone died from a shark bite. In the last 10 years, how many people do you know that were in the news were attacked and killed by sharks in the Bahamas? Probably 0. If we find one, somebody's going to say, no, Montel, you're wrong. There was one killed back in 1904. Okay, yeah. One. I'll bet you since then there's been 20 people killed in automobile accidents, walking across the street. So we're going to outlaw cars? No. Vilify cars? No. Cars are useful. Sharks are useful. We got to change that attitude. Get people to start thinking. You know, there are people who are swimming with sharks and go, "Wow, I didn't know they were that docile," and they are.
Why should Bahamians, Dr. Rahming, and you expressed earlier on the reason the coalition came about, but why should Bahamians be concerned about saving sharks in our islands?
Very good question. Well, as was mentioned, in 2011, we passed legislation declaring that our waters are a shark sanctuary. Research has shown that the Bahamas today takes in about $80 million a year by tourists coming to watch sharks. And that can quadruple in the next 5 years through proper marketing, proper conservation. And so that's one reason, an economic reason. There are people in the world who would go different places because they're beautiful beaches, other people because they're beautiful hotels, other people because there are sharks there. And the Bahamas is one such place where you can guarantee that if you come here, Stewart's Cove or some other place in Bimini or Andros can take you where sharks are.
It's one of the sanctuaries for sharks.
Yes,
eh?
yes.
And so people in our family of islands should know that the Bahamas is a sanctuary for sharks.
Absolutely.
And the UN is doing all that it can to promote this.
That's correct.
Absolutely, and, you know, and also the fact that Bahamians understand the need to be good stewards to a gift that was given to you. This is supposed to be here for the next 3,000, 10,000 years. I mean, I'm planning on being dead, and my great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren should have an opportunity to come here. But what we're not understanding is, if you look around the ocean, we had mentioned this before the show started, this beautiful globe that you have sitting right here. Most people don't understand that around the ocean right now, around the world, in every ocean, North Atlantic and South, north of the equator and the southern part of the equator, there are big land masses of trash that are just floating. Now, we're not talking about it because it's too overwhelming for most people to comprehend. But that trash is going to start to strangle even places as beautiful as the Bahamas. And so an idea of getting the next generation to understand its responsibility to stewardship, to conservation, to treating this planet with respect, knowing that if we don't, it won't be here for you. I'm telling you, there are islands in the South Pacific right now where there are people picking up trash every day, trying to clean the trash so tourists can have a place to go sit. The Bahamas doesn't have to face that now. But if you ignore the top of the food chain, cut the head off, what happens to the body?
What are you recommending should happen to poachers? Because poachers are around the world in search of sharks. I'm told that the fins are very important to some people around the world. Some say it's an aphrodisiac, eh?
Well, I don't have a particular recommendation because it's up to government policy. But I think that the government was serious when it passed the shark legislation. I believe that various enforcement mechanisms are in place. So I'm going to leave the policy issues to the government, only to say that there's pressure from places like the United Nations for all countries to move closer towards very stringent environmental laws because, for example, the United Nations now is moving towards what they call the Sustainable Development Goals over the next 15 years, 2015, 2030, one of which is, Goal 13, I believe, has to do with ensuring, if you're a member of the United Nations, that you engage in sustainable fishing. Not fishing that depletes,
yes,
but fishing that you could sustain.
Yes, you meant shark tourism is very important, apparently, for many governments around the world.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And what is shark tourism? Is it just people coming into a particular country, going on expeditions, looking at sharks?
Oh, but I mean, you see, they're divers. I mean, you know, the world is full. I wouldn't know what the entire population of people who just travel the world looking for beautiful places to go dive. People like to come here and dive, look for coral. Those same people when they're diving, we were looking at a boat last night that had 40 people on it. We're doing 4 dives a day. Those people are going to go down in one of these holes and find some sharks and take pictures. People love that. Now, you know, me personally, you know, I like a shark. It's cool. I rub him and say goodbye. I don't necessarily want to go hang out with him.
Yeah.
Other people do. And those people, I can't knock them because they like the pretty pictures. But that's a tourist industry that I think, as the ambassador
As a matter of fact, there's someone on this expedition with us. He's an attorney in New York. He comes to the Bahamas 4 times a year. It's at his own expense. He goes to Bimini or Andros or Nassau, and he pays $500 a day to be taken out just to photograph sharks.
Wow.
And he takes these wonderful pictures and he just gives them out.
And wait, and I know
And he's prepared to spend $50,000 if necessary.
I know who he's talking about, and at his house, he shows pictures of him hanging out with sharks. It's cool, but that's an industry that you can't ignore, and it's an industry that is bringing, you know, it's going to affect the economy here, but in the bigger scheme, it's going to affect, you know, when people leave a beautiful place like this and say, I got to do everything I want to do. I got to visit the Atlantis. I got to do this. I even got to go swim with sharks. I couldn't do that in such and such an island.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if I just add one other thing quickly. Now, see, there are other countries, for example, that have penguin sanctuaries.
Yes.
Because that's what they've been blessed with.
Yes.
Other countries have dolphin sanctuaries.
But some people consider them to be harmless, Dr. Rahming. We consider sharks not to be harmless. They're harmful.
But well, I'll tell you something, a very good example of that, though. You know, back years and years ago, back 20 years ago, we depleted the wolf from Yosemite National Park. Everyone considered the wolf to be harmful. We depleted the wolf, and we almost killed all of Yosemite National Park because you took out the lead predator in the ecosystem. Chop the head off, everything else starts to die. It wasn't until they put the wolf back in Yosemite did all the other animals start to come back, because you need to have that animal in the pipeline. I mean, it's part of the ecosystem, and it's got to be there, top of the food chain.
Let's take a break here on our program. This is The Platform, and Dr. Elliston Rahming and Montel Williams, our guests. We'll come right back.